so I see a quorum is here, so seeing that the hour is 7:01 PM, I'd like to call the planning board meeting of Tuesday, April 1st to order. Addie Mae Weiss, a motion to, why, I don't know why I need to, I can't remember, do we need a motion to open the meeting? We do, don't we? It feels strange, but okay, motion to open planning board meeting of Tuesday, April 1st.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. And all those in favor, Addie Mae Weiss is aye, Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison.
Aye.
Okay, and I need to figure out, I'm sorry, I'm on my husband's computer and I'm having trouble with the sound. I can't hear. Reading of the agenda here for tonight. The agenda is as follows. Open meeting, add items not anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. We have minutes from February 4th, March 4th, March 12th, and March 18th to review, and no hearings scheduled for this evening. Current planning board business. First item are the annual town meeting prep, recommendations for warrant amendments for typos, any warrant article discussion, and feedback based on the advisory hearing. And the second item on the agenda is the 121, 129 Washington Street 40B proposal, and a comment letter. And it says comment letter to ZBA, but I believe Heidi and I discussed that actually it's the select board requesting comments. Is that, so it's not comments to ZBA, it should be comments to the select board?
I'd send it to both.
Okay. Okay, are there any items not anticipated or any amendments to the agenda for this evening? All right, hearing none, I make a motion to accept the agenda as posted.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor? Addie Mae Weiss, aye. Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Jeff Harrison,
Aye.
and Rob Wolf. Okay, thank you. Okay, so first item on the agenda, actually, Heidi, if you want to lead us through that, you've sent us, kind
Are
of
we
have.
doing the minutes? Minutes.
Oh, you do the minutes, right? Sorry. All right, so starting off with the minutes from February 4th, which was I had them all printed and now I don't know if Steph, is it worth?
I have them, and I do have comments on the minutes.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out how to do a couple things here to share. Sorry, I'm trying to, I did not get through the 4 sets. I got through 2 of them. And I do have comments, so I feel like just trying to share. Sorry, guys. Okay, let me know when you can see the screen.
Yep, we can see it.
I don't know how best to approach this. I can just go through what I have, or if other people want to chime in, we can, I don't know what works.
Why don't you start with yours since you've got it up and they're fresh on your mind, and then if there's other
Okay.
comments in addition to what you have, then we'll work through those. But let's start with yours.
Okay, so this was February 4th. I felt there was a little bit of confusion in the ADU, and I tried to make some clarifying languages. Can't even speak. Some clarifying language. Like it said, for example, the town special permit ADU would identify the ADU structure not exceeding 1,200 square feet. It was just kind of like awkward language, so I tried to make some changes to the language.
That's good. I mean, I think
I wasn't sure what this referred to. I didn't have it in my notes. It seemed like talking about, I don't recall talking about inviting litigation. Just sort of wasn't sure if it was appropriate for the minutes. I don't even recall discussion about
I mean, I
conditioning.
think we had some discussion about what were the why people in some instances why not just make everything by right and why continue the special permit? And there was some discussion of, in some instances, conditions, and I don't remember, like, I know we started getting into kind of a granular detail on some of the conditions that had been imposed, but it's like messy, and it was a lot of like, well, what if, and I don't think it is very clear. I think there were things like allowing, I forget, I mean, Chris brought up what some of the kind of more obscure conditions that had been in past special permits had been, and how some of them maybe were onerous, but some of them are valid, and it was, again, in general, I do think it was a vague conversation, so it's tough to capture in the minutes.
Is it sufficient to just say like discussion took place, and maybe we could say including past permit conditions or something?
I think that's
It's-
fine. The litigation was referring to if we did not adopt the special permit ADU. And
That's-
like split,
yeah.
like if we
Yeah, I
didn't do
guess,
anything, if, or rather, if we didn't adopt language for protected use. So if we didn't
Right.
do anything, there was potential litigation.
Right, that's probably more accurate, so,
We
Right.
don't, we don't need to mention it if you don't want to. It's up.
special permit ADU. I mean, this is back when we were still wrestling with adding, I think there was, at this meeting, we were discussing, there was some thought of just waiting until the following year.
Yep.
And we were wrestling with introducing two distinctions and whether there's a need, so.
Okay.
Maybe that's, I almost even wonder, like, if anything really, actually, now that you say that, Heidi, and that recollection of what we were discussing, really it's continued special permit ADU process. It's really just what would maybe be more accurate was the special permit ADU process, or the current special permit ADU process was discussed compared to a by right, to the new by right process. And that it really kind of, I think, really was where we were still wrestling with, did we
Whether
need
we
to
needed it.
introduce
Yeah.
two distinction? Unless anyone else disagrees.
Okay. That works for me. There was no heading for signs, so it kind of just went right from this motion into Dan's comments. So I just added in a heading that the sign bylaw was started to be discussed here.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for this one. There are a lot of page number issues. They get shifted around. I don't know, like Heidi, are you adding the page numbers, or like there's ways to do it in Word so that they just get put in the footer instead of moving with the
No,
text?
this is coming from the
Okay.
person taking our rec, but anytime you make add additions and add in, I noticed that it changed the page numbers, like the
So we
location.
I think maybe if we're gonna do page numbers, we just need to like insert page numbers, right?
So it's
that
automatic.
so it's in the footer instead of embedded in the text and moving with the text.
Okay, well, I
Um,
can make that adjustment on this. If you
Okay.
want to send it, I'll adjust it.
Yep.
Anyone else have comments on that? On that 2-4?
One is this one, the February 14th?
February
4th.
4th. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 4th, right? I don't believe so.
Okay, I'll make a
But,
motion to accept the minutes from February 4th as amended.
Second.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Moved and seconded. All in favor. Addie Mae Weiss is aye. Jim Garino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
Aye.
and Frank Hoke.
right,
Okay, thanks, everyone. So these are accepted. And now we move on. I think the next one are March 4th.
Yeah, so and this one get bigger. I do recall that we had February 11th planning board minutes that we postponed, and I don't think that they were in this packet. So this was just a reminder to Heidi that they need to be reincorporated into a meeting somewhere for approval because we deferred them.
On page
Um,
3, town planner report, Heidi Doyle acknowledged that the planning had received, the planning board had received.
Yeah, yep,
It's
got
under
that.
the business
I-
right there. Yeah, you got it.
I thought that this was not the A&R was not characterized correctly. It said the A&R for 109 Nason Hill, which just took one little corner of the lot and put it in the other lot, right?
Yep.
This said, this involved reconfiguring an existing parcel into 2 parcels, one being a non-buildable lot, and I don't think that was correct. So if I recall that A&R, actually, I pulled up the plan just to remind myself, because I don't think we reconfigured an existing parcel into 2 parcels. The way I wrote it or suggested to write it, is this involved reallocating a small portion of land from an existing parcel to an adjacent parcel for more regular lot shapes?
No, it did not go to the adjacent parcel. It became its own parcel. That's why I said it, that's why it was written as,
Oh,
it was looking at one parcel, dividing it into 2 spots, just triangles piece and the other. They're now going to convey the triangle piece to the other lot in a sale. But it was taking their one bigger parcel that was kind of trapezoid and then cutting off it and creating 2.
so
We were only approving that triangular piece coming off of the first lot, parcel.
got it. Okay, that's
Because
my
in the
bad
prior
then.
one, we had divided it into 2 parcels. And this one was now taking one of those 2 parcels and making a triangle off of it.
So it wasn't a transfer of the
No,
land?
we're not transferring anything. We can't transfer. It's got to be a sale. And we didn't merge anything. They're going to transfer it in a sale via a deed. That's why we made it a separate parcel. We made it a separate non-buildable parcel. That parcel now can be sold.
Okay.
Or not. They can choose to keep it in with that other land, but I think they wanted to sell it and they needed to do this process. They weren't making because they don't own that other lot anymore.
Oh, got it. Okay. That
So,
makes more sense.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. There wasn't really anything, I have in my notes that it was Frank asking about violations, so I just put that in. Just some little cleanup things, but nothing significant down here. For me.
I have no, I mean, you've kind of hit, as usual, with great attention to detail. Anybody else have anything?
That's
If
what
not,
I had.
okay. Great. So I move to accept the minutes from March 4th as amended.
From a second,
Okay, Frank has seconded. So all in favor, Addie Mae Weiss is aye, Jim Garino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
Aye.
and Frank Hoke.
right?
Okay, so then moving on to the next set, which was it the
312 is very short.
March 12th, right?
It was just acknowledging
attended.
that we met.
So
That's because Frank couldn't keep his mouth shut.
good. So I move to accept the minutes from March 12th.
And therefore I'll second it.
Okay, Frank, thank you. All right, so all in favor of the minutes from March 12th, Addie Mae Weiss is aye, Jim Garino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
Aye.
and Frank Hoke.
Right.
Okay, great. So those are accepted. And now we're moving on to March 18th.
If March 18th, that's another long one. And if Steph wants more time to read it, we can move
Yeah.
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
we
next
can.
one.
I'm
Okay.
okay
So
with that.
next one we'll do March 18th and
February
February
11th.
11th.
Okay.
It looks
Yep.
like we
Alright.
postponed it a couple of times, so it's just
All right,
keeps.
so that is that sounds like a good plan.
I can just get these now into Jackie and get more up to date.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, we are looking at town meeting. Heidi, actually, if you want to then walk us through these, they're kind of little grammar, little word insertions and grammar.
Yes.
Pulling it up.
So,
Yeah.
so after the advisory hearing, we received some comments from specifically Mike Giamo, who is our town moderator. And he is actually a zoning attorney, so he had some very good comments. It's a little late in the game coming with some of the ones. And then Marion had some other comments as well, and we're trying to see what we can incorporate. I went down the list, and I'm gonna just let you know what Mike's comments were and which ones I feel we can do something about and which ones we need to put off. So initially, Mike, so the two articles were Article 17, the zoning updates, and then the MBTA Article 20. So on Article 17, one of his comments was that about renting rooms, and he had a concern about that we put in unless otherwise approved, which we put in there to cover Fireside since they had room rentals that for short-term rentals, we wanted to say that otherwise approved. His concern was we're not saying what the mechanism is it ZBA, is it planning board? That's going to be a substantive change, and I think that's got to wait till next year to get clarified. I think at this point, because right now we don't even know who's got certain permits, that I think it's okay to leave it for this year as unless otherwise approved, to acknowledge it's in there. They're not renting any rooms right now because it's not open for service. But it really is too much of a major change that we'd have to really have a public hearing and discuss it. So on that. Next one was that I will be bringing up. Next two I'll be bringing up. All right, I guess the next one we can bring up on his, Steph, if you want to bring up my changes that I sent around to people.
Yeah, and this is not the latest and greatest, right? It's close, but it's not, because this one still has the, you might have sent me another copy, but this
Okay.
is what I downloaded
Yeah,
from.
All
there's
right, yeah, there
another-
was one sent today had the correct ones.
Yeah,
Oh, let me see if I can grab that. Hang on.
Okay.
this morning if you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason I was looking in my mail from today. I don't have an email from you today. I have an email from
As soon as you
yesterday.
hit refresh, it'll pop up. I've noticed that before.
I've tried that earlier. I didn't see any email from today, so I actually tried that
Okay.
before this meeting.
Actually,
Let me
Maybe
see. I
send
can,
it again.
let me forward it to you right now, Steph.
Okay.
there's not a lot of difference, but there are a couple of words that would be good to look at. So his
Forwarding it right now. Sorry.
his
Here it
comments
comes.
were basically our schedule of use is the narrative, and our table of use is also like a duplicate of what our narrative says. Our table of use is correct, but in our narrative on two areas, one on the daycare childcare center, we just listed as for definition, and he wants us to add this use is permissive in all districts, so it matches, it's consistent in what the language that our bylaws on these things tend to start out with. This use is permissive in all districts or whatever district. So it follows our format better. And like I said, we have that in the table, so it's just clarifying the narrative for that one. So I was putting that in yellow to add that language.
I'm opening it now. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Okay.
That
Whew.
that
Got it
doesn't
open.
seem like a substantive change.
Excuse me?
That does
None of these
not
should
seem to
be.
No, I kind of weeded out from Mike's comments. I mean, what is substantive, what isn't, and I've run them by town council, and she's come back today and said these were fine. So there's the first one, just adding this use is permissive, which is follows the language that we use. And again, the table is correct. This would just clarify our narrative version. The second one, the two-family dwelling, we did not have this use is permissive in EA districts. We had it in all the others. In our table, we did have it permissive in EA. We just didn't have it in the narrative, so we had to add this in again to match the table. And then on the next page,
Just removing the
had-
hashtag here.
yeah, we had a hashtag, but we didn't have any other reference. The hashtag wasn't listed anywhere in the table to say, look at this. So this is just a new line that we're adding in, but we're removing the hashtag.
It's just a notation. It's like
Yep.
that this applies to the whole table, not a particular location.
Right. So I had to just highlight the P because it was too hard to show that this is what we're going to do. It's not changing any language, just removing that symbol. And And that was it for Article 17 on the changes. And then Article 20, the MBTA, we're missing the word that. And a lot that can be attributed. So it was a grammar, the word Buster dropped when all the typing. So we want to add the word in. Again, not a substantive one. And then the next change is one that Marion has been discussing and had some concerns about. I know Steph has. So the first part we missed, we had height and we had a number 2 as the reference, but actually when you look down below, it was number 3. So we need to change that 2 to a 3.
For the
And then
exception.
we would add an asterisk under minimum open space and then add this language to clarify the calculation, because there was a concern of what is a parcel. When you read it, I read it and we had our definition for open space. I thought our definition covered that it was of the whole parcel. That was my interpretation, but Marion's concern was a parcel could be interpreted as a lot parcel. So that's why we were trying to figure out what would be simple clarifying language without going into it. And any other changes can be done next year, especially as this is an ongoing item that the state might be coming up with changes as towns are adopting this. And then there was one more. In here, we had 5.7.5 as the dimensional standards, which was the pre-general code. In general code, we added alphabet as well into the sequencing. So it was supposed to be an E. So somehow we missed the 5 turning to an E. So we need to clarify that and make that an E.
That's it.
And that's it.
So I think everybody would agree they're really not substantive and just clarifications.
Yeah, other ones that Mike was mentioning is he wanted us on this to consider requiring less than 1.5 parking spaces per unit. He gave some reasons why. And again, this would require a public hearing and having a discussion of the number of parking spaces. So I did not feel that's something we can do at this late in the game. And then also he was saying, should we define infill lots, which was Marion's concern as well. And again, we have not come up with definitions. We haven't discussed adding any more definitions. And we can't add that right now as a short typo or correction. It would really take a public hearing, which we do not have the time to advertise the 2 weeks and get everything set.
And I
So my
think,
recommendation with those.
we've had discussions as we've gone through this process as to how many things do we want to create our own Sherborn definitions for, and that's always a challenge, because then as the state makes new definitions, then this is what Chris has been working with to try and get our help kind of educate us on where things are not in alignment with state code and state definitions. So, and especially infill, if you look it up, there's plenty of definitions out there. So, I mean, we'll circle back to this. It'll come up again, but kind of going forward in the back of your mind as these kinds of things confront you again, it's not necessary always to define everything as long as there's a way to reference it. Just to, there's some things that are standard enough that if we try to come up with our own Sherborn definition, we're going to make it more challenging for ourselves in the future.
So the path forward to try and get these corrections done is for the planning board to vote to accept the amendments tonight. The warrant has been signed by the select board, but it's not official because the town clerk has not signed it, the constable has not signed it, and no seal is affixed. So if we vote this tonight, I can go to advisory tomorrow night, just bring this to their attention. They don't need to revote anything, but just make them aware of these changes. Go to select board meeting on Thursday night, bring these up to them, and they will have the decision of whether they want to amend the warrant or not. And it will be up to them to make that decision. If they choose not to amend the warrant, any of these changes would have to be made at the town meeting floor.
So hopefully that is the path that'll that will work. This path of, I'd like to propose that the planning board, I make a motion that we accept these changes, these amendments to the warrant.
Second.
Second,
All right, Rob, you were first to second, so moved and seconded. All those in favor, Addie Mae Weiss is aye. Jim Garino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
Aye.
and Frank Hook.
right,
All right, thank you, everyone. And fingers crossed, just because as we've all seen, anytime you start trying to do things on the fly and you can't see, I mean, it's been a huge gift to be able to see this language and think through it with it in front of us and all of us on the same page. So again, thank you for everyone's patience and thank you, Steph, for making this happen.
Well, I also wanted to I know that Heidi's, Heidi's really been through the ringer here, and I just wanted to acknowledge that, she's done a ton of work, and we have been catching things late, and other people have been weighing in late, and I think when articles are this complex and detailed, it's not like we're just creating a new section, right? There's kind of ripple effects, and it gets really confusing, and so appreciate Heidi's diligence in just bearing with our being the town, the planning board, the town, everyone who's weighing in, our collective, requests over and over and over again.
Agreed.
Keeping track of
Definitely.
all the different versions and all that stuff. I would ask though, for the specific things that we're deciding to put off to the future year, Heidi, is there a place that you're going to be able to track these so we don't forget them?
I can put a file folder to say pull out for next year, like just label it.
Yeah, because I
PDF.
think there were a couple of them, because
Yeah,
there
there
were
are
these,
some.
and then there was the spreadsheet that we originally had, and
Yeah.
then there are some other things that have come up that we've said not this year. So
Right.
it'd be good to maybe collect those now while they're fresh.
Yep.
Turn them over to if your budget item gets approved, turn them over to that consultant.
Yeah. No, and if there is a fall town meeting, there are opportunities for us to look at this if we have enough time, to do this, if we know there is one. But right now, I haven't heard that there is any plan for one, so I think it would be just looking for next year. Just
So I thank you all for stepping in and especially I know Chris and Steph and everyone that supported getting this kind of through the final advisory hearing stage. Yeah, someone said, welcome to the Dead Parent Club. And Jim, I know you recently went through this with losing your dad, and it's everyone's been incredibly supportive, and thanks. But that being said, I hope tonight, I think we've gone through our presentations. You guys have all certainly, we've gone through beating this. We could take a little bit of a mental break this week. But I know we'll have to circle back and figure out for town meeting how we want to present. I would like to at least present one article and so I know Steph, you've done a lot of work and you're prepared, and I guess we can discuss if there's anyone else that has something that they, how we want to present at town meeting and circle, we'll have another meeting and another opportunity to think about what kind of feedback have we heard and the direction in order to hopefully give this the best support, all of these, our 5 articles, the best support going forward.
And I did want to pass on, I heard some compliments on our PowerPoints at the advisory public hearing. People said that we came up with concise, it went smoothly. So I think we got them down to the right words. So thank you, everyone.
well, the concern that I have and we need to think a little bit about is thanks to you and Chris, that is Heidi and Chris, that you had these pre-meetings with advisory, so you answered their questions in advance of that when we did have those shortened slides, that they already had a little bit of an understanding and so on. When we get to town meeting, you're going to have 100 some odd people, maybe even up to 2, that haven't heard this. Some of them will have, but most will have not. And so there could be quite a few more questions. So, just to be prepared for that. Don't think that it's going to go the same as it did on that Monday after the advisory meeting.
No,
Yeah.
and that's true. And I have been doing outreach, and at the last little town planner one, I had about 14 people that showed up in Zoom or in person, and most of them were newer people that had not come, but I ran through the whole thing just like I did, and what we did with advisory. So I do know more people have gotten educated, and I still plan to do 2 more sessions, one Zoom and one in person before the town meeting, and still attend another COA coffee. So that all we can do is try and reach out a few more, and maybe there'll be a few less questions, but there definitely will be questions. I agree, Frank.
I think the handouts will be really instrumental too, because they really have those detailed explanations that we don't have time for in the 5-minute PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So if people are like, oh, I'm confused, they hopefully could go to the handout and read a paragraph about it and see the language right next to it. If these amendments pass, Heidi, that would probably need to be updated as well.
I only had printed out a small batch of the first one
Okay.
because of that.
Yeah, we got time. We got time. Yeah, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah, no.
I think that'll be
updated.
helpful, and I think people answering questions might really kind of get familiar with that so that they can say like, oh, go to page, 14 or whatever and look at the explanation there, and I can elaborate a little bit more on it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, over the last couple of years, there have been some very heavy discussions or things that came on the zoning articles, such as the open space, the affordable housing. Those are big asks to town, and they did get through. Yes, there were some questions. I'm hoping when they see the list and look, they'll realize most of the zoning updates are pretty straightforward. The only big substantial one's going to be the MBTA, which we've been spending quite a bit of time on. So
I'm happy to help present. I know I wasn't as involved with the advisory hearing. I was waiting for the text actually to say we're on, but
No, it was, I was fine. Everything was going great. And then it was a long day. And then all of a sudden I got a text from my kids. Everyone, they were having a great day and everybody was happy. And then 3 o'clock, my mom sent me a sudden text that my dad had died.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a shock, and it's life, I guess. So yeah.
it worked out.
Yeah. So
I
again,
didn't.
thank
Thanks, Jim. I'm sure that we might be talking to you.
I mean, Chris isn't going to be involved for the town meeting part, as I understand, right?
I
Would
don't
he
think so.
It
I
has to
don't
be-
would he
think he'll
be there
there.
to answer questions?
I'll talk to him, but I don't think he is usually there.
I mean, I'm more happy to cover the more abstract items like the finish grade or similar.
That'd be great.
We can figure that out, I suppose, as we get there. But
Okay.
All right. Is everyone comfortable with looking at the letter, the kind of draft letter for the Washington projects? And
Would you like me to pull it up?
if you're able to, yes.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jeff.
Mhm.
I have one comment, but I think it looked pretty good.
I think the name of the Bailey Trail is misspelled. I think it's got ends in EY.
Where was that? It was
End of the third paragraph.
Right there, you just passed it. Mm.
Okay.
I'll just track them because it's easy.
I had concern with the last couple of sentences of the letter.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the intent there.
First of all, I was confused what it's trying to say as well as the intent. If I just read it, it says that whole paragraph, and this is a short one. It says, from a planning board perspective, we promote the construction of smaller homes and duplex style in hopes it will provide naturally affordable options and some cases, preserve greater open space, space. The reality is construction costs and housing demands lead to the three non-deed restricted 1,600 foot units to project to sell for 810 each.
So
Uh,
this, the
and then-
basis, oh, sorry, you're still reading. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and just the rest of it. To be honest with you, I think we could just stop it before, right at the end of the preserve greater open space. I don't know what that next part really has to help with, and it was also kind of confusing. So if we wanted it to be there, I think it needs to be written with a little more clarity.
I guess I'm trying to, we had a lot of work went into, and we had two, basically we had from 2016 to 2022, and then 22 to when we had the new housing production plan, and a lot of work with consultants and working with it was DHCD and Mass Housing and different groups, and all the research that keeps getting put out there and promoted about how towns should encourage diversity of housing and how towns should provide more options for smaller cottage style homes because those are going to be more naturally affordable. And I guess I just felt that there was a need to point out that it's a challenge here. Here we're saying, okay, great. And Bob's, or the developer, is pointing out that yes, he's meeting exactly what the housing production plan is saying, to that they're going to do small cottage style homes and be more naturally affordable. And then it's the conundrum, and it's not in his control, it's not in anyone's control. It's the reality of what the market will bear. But these now smaller, this size home is going to be 810,000, and that's what the market they'll sell for, because that's the market rate. And I don't know how to say it, but I guess I felt strongly that we have all these think tanks and researchers telling us that if you just you'll meet that middle housing need if you can just provide more affordable homes, and if you can provide more, find ways to encourage smaller homes and cluster developments and townhouses and all of these things. And so here we actually have a developer trying to do precisely that, and it's still not affordable, really. I guess that's what I'm wrestling with, and that's where I feel like, I mean, we could ignore it altogether, but you have a developer using that very argument for why this project is great, and it still is. I think, considering a number of things, this project is the kind of project that we would support, all things being equal, but it would have been nice if it had yielded something more naturally affordable.
But isn't that a lot of the planning board's control? So, even though it was something that would be desired.
Yeah, but we write the housing production plan, and we write in the planning board in our housing, as a planning board in our housing production plan, we wrote that we wanted smaller cottage style houses to encourage more naturally affordable. And I guess
So what you're saying is that
Well-
that he's done that, but the houses prices aren't as affordable as one would have hoped.
Well, you would need more units to make that work, obviously, but
yeah.
um, what he's proposing fits on the site well, and it's providing affordable housing and meeting that need, or attempting to meet that goal. It's it's a path forward.
I understand where you're coming from, Eddie Mae, but you know, new houses at 800,000 might fall into the definition of affordable. I mean, in really in market terms. So I mean, you maybe prefer to have houses that are 500,000, but I don't know. I just don't know whether I'm going back to what I kind of agree. When I read this, the last two sentences, I was troubled by because I was trying to figure out what you're trying to say. What we're trying to say is this isn't as close to what we aspired to in all of the previous the housing production plan.
It's the small stock, but not the lower price tag that we were aspiring to
Yeah.
in the housing production. So I have a potential suggestion. Let me just put it in. I'm going to put it in track changes so we can all see it and decide. I like the first sentence. I actually made a comment that I feel like maybe that was missing from the very opening, because I think that's one of the key. But what if we said, from a planning board perspective, we promote the construction of smaller homes and duplex styles in the hopes it'll provide more naturally affordable options. This is especially true when market conditions suggest high prices, even for these smaller homes. In this proposal, 810K for 1,600 square foot units. That way, we're just sort of like emphasizing the importance of this when we're looking at higher prices. I don't know if it hits the same mark or if it feels less confusing to me, but I don't know if it hits the same mark.
I mean, that could work for me. I mean, I mean, I can see where I don't want to throw out a negative, and I know that there's, it's like an awkward, I can see where it's awkward because it's like not anything that I can control. I just, I guess I felt like we, as a board, we put as a town, we've put a lot of energy into trying to draft a housing production plan, and then you go, all the tools in the toolbox, and it's just, they're not going to necessarily pan out to, you do the best you can, and it's not necessarily going to be where you ideally want it to be.
If you had another 30 of these, maybe the price would moderate. I like this because it's kind of just it gets the reality of where we're at with this proposal as part of the letter, which I think was kind of what you wanted to do. And I don't, I'm trying to think what the final sentence should be.
Right.
I wouldn't refer to a criticism. I don't think it's now as written would imply any criticism. So I don't think that's needed.
Right. I agree with you. Can strike that if we accept Steph's, if everyone's okay with how Steph is reworded, then yeah, it's that the whole last bit would be stricken, and then it's a decision on how do we end it.
Yeah.
So can we do just a little something in between, maybe the two sentences that suggest that we applaud the effort, but unfortunately, as market conditions suggest, that it's challenging to meet the desire of having lower priced housing.
But Frank, there's an implicit criticism that the effort has failed, and a sort of an implication that the person making the effort has fallen short, and I don't think that's reasonable.
I agree.
That sentence is saying that though. By saying that, that he's made a good effort to try to do that by making the houses smaller and giving us the, all the things that we want in the housing production plan, but we just can't meet the pricing goal.
I mean, the previous proposal was for a 40-unit apartment building on this site. So I think this is much more reasonable. Yeah, the units are $810,000, but if he were to develop two houses, they would be probably 2 million each and not have the affordable component to it. So
Yeah.
I think choose which battle.
I think this is a pretty good outcome, and I think it's useful to refer to the price so that perhaps in the letter. Although I don't know how we put a I mean, I don't know what this number means. I mean, it's an estimate in a moment in time.
Right.
They could say that the proposed selling price is higher than we would hope for without mentioning, well, I don't know. Is it important to mention $810,000? But
Yeah, I guess, I mean, then you're starting to, you gotta get into, I mean, what is yeah, what is, the average home price in different markets and what counts, I mean, based on on Middlesex County, the affordable home, 3-bedroom house is like 250,000 as deed restricted based on the 80% of area median income. So I don't know if like if that, is I don't know, is that what the state considers 250,000 to be affordable, or is that the low income? And then what is affordable? It's murky as far as what the answer is out there.
I don't know. I applaud his effort. He's providing 4 units. One of them is affordable,
Yeah,
and the rest are moderate.
right.
Well, then you take that, like I said, you take that sentence out that we're trying to say that because irrespective if it's saying that he didn't meet the mark.
I guess I also felt like putting it in here because someone else is going to make that comment as they go through, and I would guess I was, because it's been said about other projects when people make comments, and it's kind of an ongoing criticism that there's this, that they lots of many townhouses that are you can't find a moderate ranch house. Those neighborhoods are not built anymore, and I don't know, it's that people are tearing them down. I don't know what the answer is. I guess it's definitely a challenge. This middle this middle income housing.
I guess I don't feel like the way it reads here is pointing out to a failure. I think we're just saying we want more naturally affordable options, and small was the way to go. But now this is like as market, and so I changed this. Market conditions elevate prices. So it's not the developer's fault, right? It's the market conditions that are elevating prices, even for these smaller homes, that this is even more true. We need to figure out.
I mean, I guess the benefit is because it's got a number of, meeting stretch code and efficiencies are smaller, so the market price is out of his control, but he has potentially made maintenance and livability more affordable because ideally the electrics and other, just what it takes to, smaller. So the materials and the insulation, keeping heat, keeping power will be more affordable perhaps because, so it's the market rate, it's more a more expensive unit, but I'm tripping over
So I'm
myself.
looking at at Millis. They have this place called Regency at the Glens, and I'm reading a little bit of what they have, and they're townhouses, and they're in the 17 to 2,600 square foot range, and their prices are in that 800,000 plus range also, and so that's for a townhouse in Millis.
Yeah.
And to put it in perspective, I'm hearing that a 900 square foot ADU is costing $350,000. And that's usually only hooking up to something like the septics and does not
That's
have a lot of these,
construction cost.
you're right, does not have a lot of the stretch code and these other features. So the price per square foot is probably pretty close to par with what the industry is. I think it's just the going rate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we're critiquing his pricing per se, right? The market's going to bear what the market's going to bear. But the fact that it's projected this high is just, it was a little startling to me to see it.
I mean,
Personally.
I think if you look at other 40Bs, 59 North Main Street, they're detached units, but they're priced higher, and that was 5 years ago.
Right.
So I guess we should come back to the point. Does this sentence even really need to be there?
I wouldn't. I just wanted to point out one other thing. As far as the stretch code, it's not voluntary. Sherborn's adopted it. It's
Okay.
required.
Okay,
But this is a 40B, right? So they can bypass local bylaws.
I don't think they can bypass that.
I think Jim's right.
Okay.
It's a well, it's a state requirement, but towns have to adopt it. So Sherborn's adopted it, and
We adopted the super stretch code that the state's not requiring that one yet. So that's why I don't know if he only has to follow, like, I don't know which stretch, is it the super stretch or the stretch code that he's looking at?
but he was looking at net zero, I thought, at one point. I don't know
Okay,
if it still is. So
Yeah.
that's commendable.
yeah.
Was he doing? I don't remember on this one. Was he looking at passive house as well?
I don't remember if that was in there.
yeah, I don't know, maybe I guess I knew that there was controversy over Sherborn adopting the stretch code and what that would do to, I guess it would, I guess I don't understand enough about the difference between the state stretch code and the super stretch code to know. I know that the concerns were that it would increase costs of construction.
So do we take this out because it's not it's not above and beyond anything? I mean, it's still a positive feature, but it may not be a willingness, it may just be a requirement.
How about instead of the stretch code, just energy efficient construction, energy efficient. Yeah, we say that already. That's for the utilities. But just in general, because I thought he had solar panels as well as car chargers outside and for electric cars.
Sustainable features.
What if we said the inclusion of energy efficiency, such as heat pumps, solar panels, etc.? Because solar panels aren't energy efficient utilities.
Correct. Energy efficient utilities are like the washing machines and the dishwashers and the not putting in gas stoves or but putting in inductions, things like that.
The inclusion of energy efficiencies, such as electric heat pump units, solar panels. What else were you saying, guys?
He has Energy Star certified appliances and lighting.
I think that's part of the efficiencies, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm reading
Yeah, you
his
don't
list
need
of
to-
what he wrote.
No, you need to specify that separately because there's a lot more to what he's planning on doing than just that. And I thought he was also talking about, having like low VOC, carpeting and drapes. It was a variety of things that he had listed in what he was going to do.
Right.
I mean, we don't have to list all of them, but
No.
Right, energy and energy efficient and climate safe or environment safe because it was the living environment that he's looking at keeping safe.
so I'm sorry, I lost track. What is the language that's being proposed?
And environment safe, energy efficient and environment safe.
Energy efficient and environment safe what?
Construction. Jim, do you have a better word?
Materials, it's not really, it's.
I would just
Materials,
say
I thought. Energy efficient, energy efficient features and environment safe materials, construction materials.
sustainable practices.
Set of materials.
Which covers a lot.
I know, it's getting more and more vague.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's already listed in his proposal.
Energy efficient features and sustainable practices intended for this project.
Just have features twice now. Yeah. Positive.
The other positive aspects of this proposal. The other positive aspect of this proposal.
Oh, aspects. Yep. That's good. Can I take out intended for this project just because we've already talked about of this project?
Yeah, I think so.
There was a visually and a visual here, so I
Oh, yeah.
was thinking either this could be aesthetically or this could be appearance.
Visually
change
fit
one
the
of them.
landscape with the same aesthetic as two single-family homes, or the same
That
appearance.
works.
Yeah,
That
Or-
works.
Or you could say it will harmoniously fit within the landscape.
Okay, yeah, I like harmonious.
Obviously fit the landscape with the same visual as two single family homes. That sounds
So
good.
harmoniously fit the landscape, yeah.
And then I don't know, I felt,
Fit within the landscape.
yeah. Yep. This sentence I felt was just, I get that we get to it at the bottom.
Yep.
Right, but I wondered if it was, I think the most important, feature of this development is providing those diverse housing options that simply just like don't really exist that much in Sherborn, right? So I guess I'm suggesting adding maybe a second half of the sentence, or maybe just part of this. Maybe we don't have to point to the affordable housing unit, but and that's part of the master plan, right? The housing production
Yeah.
plan is adding affordable housing.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll put this in and see how we like it. It's-
I don't know if we want to say housing stock or subsidized housing inventory,
Yeah,
SHI.
okay.
All right, so I guess we're back to how do we close?
Yes.
What does that mean, town subsidized housing inventory? Doesn't that mean that the town is helping to pay for the price of the housing?
No,
No,
what
that's
your
the SHI. That's the 10%. That's the whole premise of the state affordable
Mhm.
housing requirement.
Okay. Huh.
I
But
mean,
if
you
we
could
just
might
said
wanna put
adding
in
an affordable,
parentheses SHI because people have heard SHI. I think people have heard SHI. I mean,
what if we just say adding an affordable housing unit in town?
Good.
yeah, I guess I'm just trying to, again, it goes to any opportunity to highlight the distinction between houses that are affordable versus houses that are SHI affordable.
Oh.
But
Absolutely,
the
it
state's
could,
only gonna count the SHI units. Regardless.
yeah, I got to agree with Addie May here. When you use affordable, like lowercase, what does that mean?
Mm.
It, maybe it just means that, you know, you don't have to be, you know, it, it doesn't really mean anything. Whereas affordable housing in the SHI means something
Okay.
very specific.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, the audience understands what we're writing here, though.
Yes.
And I guess, I know the price is to some degree, like, why are we pointing it out? And the only reason I feel like we're putting it out is because someone else is going to have that reaction and go, whoa. I mean, yes, once you do your research, okay, that's the market rate for, townhouse in Millis, a townhouse in any of our, I guess adjacent communities. And again, the 59 North Main, those went for a lot of money. I guess new construction always is in New England where we don't have a lot of new construction, it is a premium right there too. So I don't know. I'm torn back and forth, except for I wanted to somehow tie it to this. We're trying to use the tools to encourage more naturally affordable housing, and maybe that is what's considered naturally affordable. I don't know, but don't
What
think
if we just took out the numbers and just said that part? What if we deleted that second half of the sentence and just said,
I mean, Bob will tell you have to do 40 or 50 of these to make
right,
it work. So approve my project on Coolidge.
right. That's true. I don't know.
I mean, in the housing plan, it's it's seeking more diverse housing stock and also refers to more affordable home ownership options. It doesn't say affordable housing in the way that we use affordable housing as a phrase. So, I mean, I think it checks the box of diverse housing stock and more affordable home ownership options. So I know the sticker price is what it is.
to delete the last sentence and have it end just on a positive note?
I
And
would
are you
agree with
suggesting?
that. I advocated for that already. I would be in favor of that.
Sorry, Andy, I just missed what the suggestion was. Was it to delete the last sentence, Andy?
I I could go either way. I mean, I can see where maybe it's not in anyone's control, I guess. I, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I guess when they're saying an affordable unit is 250,000, then to my mind, then a naturally affordable should have been in the 500, 600,000. But again, it's all then that maybe is only possible based on construction costs and land cost, and you only get there if you build a lot more and have more density, and then we're right back in the same circular dilemma. So I don't know. I whatever yeah, I'll
Maybe this is what affordable in Sherborn means.
right.
And if it's density level, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, even at the higher density level, I was just talking about it in the neighboring town, similar size square foot is going for a similar price. And
I
it's
think
one house.
it's the diversity of housing stock. I think we all applaud the fact that this is this type of development. I think, and so it is in alignment.
All right, so I guess just cut that last and just end on, just cut, I guess, all of anything related to the cost.
Yeah,
Delete this whole thing?
At what point does that change? Is it 500,000, 600,000?
Again, in the 2022 plan, there isn't a definition of affordable at all.
Of naturally affordable, right?
And
Yeah,
what,
there's no mention of it in the definitions.
Right.
and it does say that from a
research,
planning board
nobody can tell
perspective,
you what is, there's no defined what is naturally affordable. Naturally affordable is, generally people talk about, if you try to look up what's naturally affordable, they say smaller homes, more modest priced homes. So, but nobody can give you a hardcore definition. So,
but we get the point across by saying the planning board perspective, we promote the construction of smaller homes and duplex styles
yeah.
in hopes to provide a more naturally affordable option and in some cases preserve greater open space. That's the goal and that's what he's accomplishing. And I think it says it if you just end it at that period after open space.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
All right. Everyone in agreement? Are we good with, and I guess, can we do one letter addressed to both the ZBA and the select board?
I would. Yeah.
Okay. So,
You could just put everybody's name on the bottom of it.
It's at the
Planning
top.
board's name.
It's at the top.
Yeah, but that's just says who's on the planning board, but this letter's from all of us.
I said on behalf of Sherborn Planning Board.
Yeah. Half of the board was listed above.
Okay, whatever. We've had letters where we've had all our names listed at the bottom as well, because we were also agreeing to this as we're writing the letter as a board.
I guess I don't recall one of those, but if you want to do it that way, if someone has I'm happy to do whatever. I certainly strongly feel that, the board is all of us, so whatever is the best way to illustrate that.
I think it's fine the way it is.
I'm fine with the way it is too.
All right, so I make a motion to accept the letter for submission to the select board and
So just
zoning.
out of curiosity, those red lines that are at the bottom of that paragraph, does that mean that they're not there anymore?
Yeah, do you want me to just, do we need to keep a record of the changes that we made in the meeting at
No,
all?
we can just accept and
Okay, I'll do that so we can see the final product. I also deleted this quotation because I think I saw the end quotation here, but I think that's this. Anyway, we can look at it in a second. Let me just accept everything.
We want to have a final.
And I pulled that letter, that was that I quoted it because that was written in their letter. That was the exact wording that he put in his project eligibility letter.
Right, but there was no ending quotation. So we either have to put it here and here and then have a nested.
That whole indented is directly from his letter. So
Right, so we can just, so would you want to put quotate, I mean, we could just italicize it because that
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
indicates that it's, if we do that, that usually sort of says it's from their
Okay.
letter, right?
That works.
And then we don't have the nested quotations.
I think we need a final sentence. Just to end it, I don't know.
We appreciate the applicant's efforts in this direction or something like that.
Have we said that?
Right.
I mean, I guess that maybe it's something along the line, we appreciate the applicant's willingness to revisit this. I don't know, I guess, yeah, like we said it at the beginning that he withdrew his previous plan, and that we're supportive.
Maybe we should end it by we applaud the applicants look at revisiting this and the planning board strongly supports this latest plan or something.
Yeah, that's good.
There you go.
Along those lines.
Yeah,
Can we say stated here so we don't have highlights twice?
The applicant states the following.
Yeah.
I guess the only other thing would be, we appreciate the applicant's efforts and the planning board supports this latest proposal for this parcel. It's the only thing, just to kind of clarify that we're looking at, we know that there was a different one for this parcel.
well, there was a bigger 40B. What if we just said 40B?
All right. Anyone else? A motion to accept the letter as amended,
Second,
moved and seconded by Frank. All in favor, Addie Mae Weiss is aye, Jim Garino,
I,
Jeff Harrison,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
All right.
and Frank Hoke.
right?
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate the work and the thought that went into making it better. What else do we need to address this evening?
Reports of meetings with other boards and entities. Do you want to report on the MWRC and the SWAP legislative breakfast?
Sure. I mean, I'll say what, I mean, I think we both, Heidi and I have attended, every year there's a legislative breakfast with local state reps attend, and Sherborn being part of the Southwest Advisory or Southwest Area Planning Group, we are with Bellingham, Medway, Millis, and so in years past, it's always been a little bit of an echo chamber of the same of our regular group meetings, with some legislative updates about new stuff coming down and new grant opportunities and new things happening. And this year, the positive was that they combined SWAP with we were with Trick, which was the other, or we were with the other region
Metro West Regional.
Metro West, okay, Metro West, which then that included Framingham, Natick. Who else was in that group?
Holliston.
Holliston, right? Holliston. That was a big one, having Holliston part of the conversation, because we're never really in the same room with Holliston too often. So it was nice to have them also present. So it was nice having more towns in that conversation. And then therefore it also brought more representatives to be there for the panel and to speak. But it was kind of too bad that it was in this era of uncertainty, because that was what dominated the discussion. Basically a lot of discussion of don't plan to, basically just hold on to your seats and they were in for a ride, and don't expect to ask for any big earmarks, don't expect to ask for any, they're just trying to figure out, can we just hold steady? And definitely a kind of a more somber tone to the whole meeting, and legislative, instead of getting updates on exciting new bills coming down the pipeline, it was a lot of discussion on nobody knows what's happening in at the federal level, and therefore everyone's holding their breath at the state level.
Right. The one area that they said money was available was for battery energy storage systems. They talked about Medways coming in, and the state is looking to expand that, and they feel that this is a real need. So maybe that's something we can pick up right after this town meeting, is to look into coming up with something, because they may end up being put into your town regardless of your input. So hopefully we have something on our books, bylaws that would talk to maybe some site design or planning or some minor things that you can try and have input on. where right now we don't have anything. So we'll go back to Frank's version. Yeah, that was kind of it. Any other boards? Rob, anything you've gone attended?
No, I actually had signed up for the legislative breakfast, but then I ended up being out of town that day, so couldn't make it.
Okay.
And,
Jim, anything from the historical side?
We haven't met much, so I don't believe so.
Energy sustainability is doing a lot, but not really much at this point, to discuss with the planning board. We are going to revisit the CARP, the Climate Energy Resilience Plan. And there are different tasks that were highlighted in that plan that different groups in town were going to be in charge of, run, or be involved with. So as we're revisiting and looking at that, we may be coming back to the planning board as well as some of the other boards to try to implement some of the plans that we felt that were important when we did that work.
And I think from the town planner report, the only thing I have is I've been working with the open space and recreation plan updates, and there will be some drafts probably in the next 2 months to come around, and planning board would have a chance to look at the draft and put in comments. Do you want to talk about next meeting dates? So we'll look at if people want to still do Zoom, if you want to do hybrid. The next meeting is going to be on the 15th of April. I'll also post for 4/29 for the town meeting and for 5/1 in case it goes over, in case we have a quorum if planning board wants to talk. Then our other planning board meeting dates in April would be 5/6 and 5/20.
In May, you mean?
In May, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
May.
The election is election day, May the 6th, or is it the
13th.
13th? Okay.
So maybe at least the 5/6 be in person.
I think that makes a lot of sense. We should do that. April 15th being tax day, is that a good day to meet?
Then everything should be, I don't think it
It's
changes
our last,
anything.
I
it's
don't
our
know.
last,
I might be burning the midnight oil on that one.
yeah. The only problem is that would be our last meeting before town meeting, and I don't know if we want to meet one more time just to review or just do it in small groups, because we are going to be meeting on the 29th at town meeting.
I think we should plan on how that presentation's going to work.
Yeah. We can do it the following week on the 22nd if anyone wants to go that late.
School vacation week, I'll be
Oh.
away. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll see if I can burn the midnight oil on the 14th.
I
Well, it could be a
cannot
short
make
meeting.
I cannot make May 20th, but if everyone else can, you'll be fine on quorum.
So hopefully the 15th is just going to be meeting minutes and then just talk about town meeting.
I think that sounds good. And everyone, unless anyone disagrees.
So that's a Zoom one then on the 15th, and then on the May the 6th will be in person.
Hybrid. Yeah.
All right. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor, Addie Mae Weiss, aye. Jim Garino, Rob Wolf,
Aye.
Deb Harrison,
Aye.
and Frank Cook.
Aye.
And meeting adjourned at 8:21 p.m. Tuesday, April 1st. Thank you, everyone.